Welcome to Speaking of Spirits. This is SOS, and I'm here with Gina. And been front and center for a number of weeks, actually 4 years probably, and it just is over as far as this portion of the trial. But the Chad Daybell case, we don't necessarily want to talk like completely about the crime part. We wanted to talk a little bit today about things that came up during the trial that were really intriguing to us. And we wonder, I kept thinking all the way, I watched every moment of the trial. So Lori's was not televised.
No.
But Chad's was. And I not only watched every moment of the trial, like even if I was at work that night, I would watch it. And then I'd watch the East Idaho News.
Yeah, Nate Eaton.
Yeah, he was amazing.
Job with both of them.
Phenomenal job. His special court coverage every night. And then I also found other podcasters who were covering it. I mean, I couldn't get enough of this.
The big ones, the Datelines and the 2020s, and interviewing the different people in it.
Yeah,
it's around the world.
Yeah. So this took place in East Idaho, only an hour and a half from us?
Maybe
2 hours? Is it?
Yeah. Probably just over an hour to an hour and a half.
Hour and a half.
Yeah, right near Rexburg, Idaho.
It was.
They called it Sugar Salem, and now it's Salem and Sugar City.
Yeah.
But when I grew up, it was Sugar Salem.
Okay. And so the Daybell case, and I know that a lot of people know about this case and have heard, just ad nauseum about this case. But there's some really interesting things that came up that because I didn't really pay attention to the Lori Daybell case since it wasn't televised at the time. I had other things going on, I guess, because usually anything true crime I eat up. But this one, I
totally watched.
Were you?
Nate Eaton did the updates. And
like that, so. I should go back because all of those things are on East Idaho News YouTube page, and I'm totally plugging them right now because he was phenomenal. So let's go back to the beginning, right? So Chad and Lori meet and decide that's it. They're gonna off their spouses so they can be together, right? And
I don't think they met and was going to off their spouses. He was receiving information from Jesus and God. And I'm going to give you guys a clue. I hear from people on the other side. I am a medium. If anybody tells you it's okay to kill someone, check with your doctor, because that is not how it works. If something is telling you to do something bad or harmful to another person, either you've got an imbalance going on that you need to get treated, or something evil is messing with you. And I'm kind of thinking there might have been a little of both. I think there could have been some imbalance going on, but I also think something very evil used him especially as a tool.
Yeah. So it was pretty interesting because I've watched some interrogation techniques on Lori, and they analyzed her body language. And something I learned on one of the videos was that I hadn't really thought about, that sociopaths are made and psychopaths are born. And Lori was definitely a sociopath. And they also said every sociopath is a narcissist, but not every narcissist is a sociopath. So Lori became evil. And Chad, it sounds like sociopath became evil. And I use the term evil because I don't know how else to classify it. So it seems like Chad wanted a lot more attention in childhood that he couldn't get it. And so he kind of created this, I don't know. He said he became a prophet or something?
Yeah, it's associated with the LDS religion, but he branched off as the Church of the Firstborn. So while
is that his own church?
That's his own church. I believe there's something somewhere that referenced that. I'm not 100% sure. That isn't a faith that I've practiced in my life, the LDS religion. But in southeastern Idaho, it's a very predominant religion. And there have been some very messed up things that people have used that religion to have freedom of religion to do. That isn't the mainstream religion.
Right.
It's somebody's warped ego. They're warped.
Well, he's a cult leader.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
that's definitely a cult.
It was definitely a cult. I mean, he was manipulating people into doing things they would never have normally done.
Most likely would have never done, but maybe never done if they had never been in a situation like that.
True.
I struggle with people either are able to take another life or they're not. And just because they are able to, it's not a simple thing. It's like in self-defense, or if someone's attacking their family. It's not just, hey, you got a life insurance policy on your spouse. You want to be a guts?
Yeah, so they meet, and then Lori basically works with her brother Alex to kill her husband Charles, which she is now in Arizona, and she's going to be standing trial for that murder. And then
also her nephew was attempted murder, or her niece's husband. That wasn't also. That's the connection of how they found him in Idaho. They traced the description of the vehicle to the child, and found out that it was in Idaho Falls, contacted the Idaho Falls police to find out about that vehicle. Alex, the uncle, took Kylie's vehicle to Utah and shot at
Tammy.
At the ex-husband of Melanie Gibbs in Utah.
Wait a minute. Melanie Gibbs was her cousin?
Melanie Gibbs was, I think it's Gibbs. There were two different Melanies.
Yeah.
The one was the niece of Lori Daybell. She was in cahoots. Strangely enough, mostly Chad had females in his,
Yeah,
there
wasn't very many men involved.
There were Alex.
But
he was the handy guy that cleaned up the messes.
Who is dead as well.
Yes,
conveniently dead.
Strangely dead. One of the well-known things that his wife Zulema said was the night before he died, he said, I am either a man of God or I'm the fall guy.
Yep.
And the next day he
was dead. Yeah.
So they said by the autopsy there was nothing.
But they said that about Tammy too. So
how hard is it to lace medication or food?
Exactly. And there's a lot of natural things that cause.
Yeah, that's stress. When you wake up and you're like, oh dear, have I killed all these people because God said to, or
a maniac told me
Chad said to?
Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to talk about too was this light and dark issue and degrees of darkness. So Chad would basically tell everybody, and this was particularly the children, that Tylee and JJ that he killed. And he's been convicted, so this is not allegedly. He's now been convicted and is on death row for the murder of Tammy, his wife, JJ, and Tylee, who were Lori's kids. Well, JJ was adopted, but they're her kids. Yeah. So he would call out people as being light and dark. And I do believe in light and dark. I do believe that. And I do believe you meet people sometimes that are dark. And you meet other people that you just are like, they're just the most beautiful selves. They radiate everything. And so I'm going to bring up something that was told to me last night about a 3-year-old. And I won't mention names, but you know who she is. And what was interesting was that the mom told me that they went to a Maverick. I don't know if it was this week or last. And as they walked it wasn't a automatic sliding door. It was you had to hold it open. Yeah. And she had her 3-year-old who the man opened the door for them so they could leave. And mom said, thank you very much. And they were walking to the car when the 3-year-old said, that is a very bad man. She goes, mom said she's never done that before. Or maybe one other time she had mentioned something about somebody being bad. You sense things in people. that you walk by someone and you're like, ooh, it's not, there's not somebody's not right here.
Or the eyes.
Yeah.
The eyes, they say, are the windows to the soul. There's some people that don't have much, if ever, soul at all. You can see, and there's just dark. There's no emotion. There's no anything. And you hear this like with the research, like sociology, psychology of like psychopaths, that you're no different than a cube of butter to them.
Yeah, there's no, there's zero emotion.
Yeah, there's like
no empathy.
Nothing.
And that's
complete entitlement of believing and acting on whatever impulse they have, and no one else matters.
Yeah, So, I know that every single one of you who are watching this video, you have walked by somebody who's given you the willies. And I'm not talking about some maybe bum that you're afraid of or something like that.
Who grumps at you.
Yeah, I'm talking about somebody who you can't put your finger on it, but you walk by them and you're like, ugh.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there are people, I believe, anyway, who are dark. It's, for lack of a better word, but their intentions are not good. And they're just, there's something really, really off. So that I believe. But rating people on, like they did, like Chad would do, on degrees of darkness.
But Jesus told him.
Well, and he did it. And Lori did this as well to murder the children.
Yeah.
They wanted them out of the way.
Yeah, because none of his children got killed.
His children were alive.
People that attempted murder and the niece, her children didn't get killed. It was just the ones that personally cramped his space.
Yes.
And had life insurance and or death benefits.
Death benefits. So he also got convicted on, was it fraud? Insurance fraud?
And some other.
So it was because they killed the kids and then kept collecting the Social Security benefits that they had because Charles was dead, JJ's adopted father, and mysteriously, Charlie's dad is dead. There's like so many bodies. So we have.
It was like the perfect storm because Mr. Ryan, who was Tylee's father, who was Lori's ex-husband, died in 2018.
And she got a ton of money on that.
Uh-huh. And she got money, but Tylee got Social Security benefits.
Well, but there was a life insurance policy and then Tylee's Social Security benefits. Because if you're a minor child and your parent paid into Social Security and they die before the child is 18, there's death benefits to the child, right?
That's how they bought the vehicle. That is what connected the Utah situation to the Idaho situation. Yeah, was that vehicle that was used in the attempted murder of the guy in Utah. But it's to have Mr. Ryan pass in 2018, and then 2019 we have Charles, Tylee, JJ, Tammy, the attempted murder on the other guy in Utah. What a coincidence!
And Alex.
Oh yeah, and
now
Alex dropped dead.
So you have 6 or 7 people involved or dead, all around Lori, and then she meets Chad and more. Yeah. So was Lori already offing them before she met Chad and just thought this?
Well, here's the interesting thing. I didn't think she'd been married to Chad that long. She's had, I want to say, Charles. I believe I heard
14 years though.
Well, yeah, but Chad was her 4th or 5th husband.
Yeah, 5th.
And she was supposedly married to Charles that long. Did she just decide she needed the money to off the Ryan guy? I don't know. Did she off the Ryan guy?
What about her other husbands? Where are they?
Yeah.
Because they didn't talk about them. The John Pryor, who was Chad's defense attorney, talked a lot about this. Oh, maybe Chad was her 5th husband. So we know about Ryan, Chad, and Charles.
And then
who were the other two?
There was a high school. If you go on to, I think it's Netflix, and watch Sins of the Mother, it kind of goes through that. Or she got married shortly after high school for a very short period of time.
So I
don't know if she married the man who's the father of her son. that he talks about. Tylee was his half sister, but he has the last name Ryan.
That poor boy.
Yeah, so he's not a boy now.
He's an adult. Still.
He lost everything. He lost his mom and his dad.
And his sister and his brother.
Yeah, and to have it be in this horrible, horrible thing. But that's interesting. And that's what I said. Was it the perfect storm? Was she already a little diabolical? And they just crossed paths, and it was a great opportunity for fantasy world, because she was a goddess and they'd had past lives and they married themselves to each other in the temple. And they were ordering wedding clothes and wedding rings while both spouses were alive, or at least shortly after Charles was died, on their accounts. I mean, it's mind blowing. Lengths.
So the light and the dark, do you think that where do you think Chad got the idea of light and dark?
So I feel like there is a possibility he had some gifts, but I also feel like, because there was a gal named Julie Rowe, I think.
Oh God, she was crazy. She's crazy.
He followed her skirt tail in that she was writing books. So he was writing books about this 144,000 and this Church of the Firstborn, and she wrote a book about her near-death experience. Suddenly, all these people that had known Chad their whole life hear about his near-death experience, and he writes a book about it. And, I think that money became an obsession, and this fantasy, exciting life, rather than just married to his wife of 29 years, that they had 5 children with. How boring is that? She wasn't a blonde goddess with Tammy
was a beautiful woman.
Tammy was a beautiful woman.
She was beautiful.
But I could see where this...
But it was routine.
Yeah.
Because they've been married for all these years, and she was the breadwinner, but she was a librarian or something at a school. She didn't make hardly any money.
Well, and the curious part... I don't know. There's just so many twists and turns. The curious part was Chad was a grave digger by trade in Utah. That was his job.
Yep.
I have friends that grew
they
up
call it sexton, right? They call him a sexton.
I can't remember the exact word. But it's the person who digs the graves and maintains the cemetery. That was his job.
Yeah.
And strangely, these missing children of his wife ended up buried in his backyard, and he didn't have anything to do with it.
And you can tell. So if you don't know, JJ was 7 and Tylee was 16, I think, when they were murdered. And JJ was buried, but he had duct tape
on his face.
And
with a plastic bag duct taped. His arms were duct taped to his side. His feet were duct taped together. And then all of that was put yet into another garbage bag that was wrapped in duct tape.
But Tylee, he hated Tylee. Tylee didn't like him.
Yeah.
And Tylee's body was mutilated and burned. Destroyed. And there's parts of her that have not been found. That's rage. That's hatred. So she didn't like him, and she was a young lady who was not afraid of speaking her mind. No. And I think she spoke her mind in front of Chad, or he said something to her at one point, and she's like, "Oh, who are you?"
Yeah.
Kind of, and she's also 16.
A text message or a witnessed conversation by somebody of him saying, "Well, she doesn't like me anyway."
Yeah. So he mutilates her body and then burns it, and then but the whole time he keeps telling Lori these degrees of dark, and Lori's asking her, what's their darkness level? Because when they got to a certain level of darkness, then they become zombies.
Yeah.
Like a demon was entering their body, and they'd no longer be who you knew anyway. So it's okay to kill them.
Yeah, the only way to free the original person was to murder that. However, there were other zombies that didn't die. Tammy, the 2 kids, and Charles died. Other people that were zombies, or the depth of whatever.
Probably because they knew that there was no way to actually kill those people because they weren't,
or cover it up,
or
monetary.
There wasn't enough
benefit.
gain from.
Yeah.
The whole thing is so bizarre. Like I remember Chad Eaton said something like, "If this was to be made into a movie, they'd have to tone it down.
Yeah,
because it's so unbelievable.
Yeah."
And it truly is. You're like, what the hell is going on? Like,
well,
this really didn't happen, right? Like, this is a whole put on.
And the thing of it is the grandparents of JJ.
Thank God for them because they pushed.
Yeah, if it wasn't for them. But they offered when Charles died to take JJ. So it wasn't about that she loved this child and couldn't live without him because he was gone in 2 months. His father, adopted father, which is in fact his uncle,
great uncle,
something like that.
Uncle.
Yeah, because it was Kay's son who's his father.
Right.
And Kay was Charles's sister. So great uncle.
Something.
Kay wanted the children.
Yeah.
She was going to take JJ, everything.
They had, they did take JJ.
Yeah.
When he was a baby. And they kept him for a few years. And then Charles said, I would like to raise him.
Yeah.
And they really didn't want him to go. But they thought he'd have a wonderful life.
Yeah.
Because he's younger. He's a young man. And they're older.
Well, then they could also be their original role, which was grandparents.
Right.
And so 100% it was for money.
Yes.
Because, and it was really sad. And her sister did an interview at CrimeCon with Nate Eaton and said, just before they arrested Lori, or just before they found the bodies, I can't remember if it was January or June, they found the bodies in June, said, Lori is a wonderful mother. Lori loves her children. She's devoted. She takes care of them. You can see I have no doubt in my mind that they're safe, because Lori kept saying they're perfectly safe.
They're safe.
They're safe. Everything's great. It's perfect. And how Chad could manipulate her to believe that that was the only way they could save them, was to kill them. It's just... And it wasn't like they slipped them an overdose.
No.
That they fell asleep and didn't wake up. It wasn't like, that there was this call, one bullet.
Right. This was
both of them were
terrible.
Heinous, but Kylie's was horrific.
I can't even imagine. Yeah. I can't even imagine.
And then Tammy was not killed that brutally. Yes, she was murdered. She most likely was suffocated. There were signs of asphyxiation. I'm going to say... Maybe, this is my thought, maybe Chad sat on her, held her arms down, and Alex smothered her with a pillow or a bag. But she wasn't chopped up and she wasn't burnt and her face wasn't duct taped. And they did give her a proper burial. Mm-hmm. They did not do
because
that.
And
the other thing is Lori wouldn't let Kay take JJ to his father's funeral. They had to leave and they had to move. And so, she told everybody he died of a heart attack.
Right.
I would probably have a heart attack too if someone shot me in the face or the chest, below range. But yeah, it just is mind-boggling. But the dark and the light. I really believe there are people that are dark and light. I don't believe it's my position to determine if they deserve
their outcome. I mean, it's one thing to say, okay, that person, there's something there, and I don't want to be associated with them. There's something there. Fine. Then you don't associate with them. It's an entirely different thing to determine somebody else's fate.
Yeah. Well, and this is an example that I give to people about right and wrong. We all know right and wrong. So, it is wrong to premeditate the death of somebody. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. So we live in a concealed carry state. So you're packing. You go to the mall. There's an active shooter that's killing people. Exactly. Which is more wrong? To stand there and do nothing while he's murdering people?
Right.
Or to
you have a weapon and you can take him out.
His murder.
Right.
And shoot him.
Right.
So yeah. There are times when, no, it's not the perfect thing, but it's far better than standing there letting him kill 50 people instead of just 7 or whatever is going on. But to plan the deaths of children in such a heinous manner.
Children who would have been happily taken by so many different people.
Yeah.
They would have taken those kids. And it had nothing to do with their Social Security. It had everything to do with the fact that they were incredibly loved by so many people.
Yeah. But it was the Social Security that cost them their lives.
Yes, it was.
Because they continued. Lori went and changed the bank accounts before Tylee died.
Yeah.
To have the money go to her account.
And it wasn't at the day that JJ died that she changed it?
Well, she changed his in September. She changed Tylee's in August. And they've proven that she died on the 8th of September. So it was a week before. Gosh, she changed it. And it's
so mind-blowing. If you guys have not, you need to go to East Idaho on YouTube, East Idaho News on YouTube, and go back to the beginning of the case and watch it. Yeah. And watch the recaps.
And watch that. I think there's another movie too, but I'm not sure. But The Sins of the Mother. And it's like her older son, contacted her and was like, where are the kids?
I forget now.
Ryan. I can't think what his first name is either.
He's this poor young man. When he testified, I was in tears. I was just in tears for him. The sadness is just, and the anger and the hatred. He was just ping-ponging with emotions, which you would do naturally. Yeah. Because everybody in his family is gone. Yeah. So, oddly enough, Lori Vallow, Daybell, is in prison in Pocatello, where we are. Okay.
Life prison. Yeah. 3 or 6 life sentences. 3 life sentences.
I think 3.
And the others were consecutive.
Felonies, felony convictions for fraud and all that kind of stuff. But, I mean, they did transfer her to Arizona to stand trial now. Maricopa County. And
which is really good, because I've heard that they are very
fast.
They're efficient, and they're not a whole lot of fluff.
No.
It's like they handle problems.
Yes. It's if she ends up, and they have the death penalty there like we do here, but in Idaho, people don't die. Here it's like forever. Yeah. And
on average, I think it's 20 some years.
Yeah.
That they live.
Where in Arizona, they're pretty quick.
Yeah. I want to say somebody, and I could be 100% wrong, said like 6 to 10 years is the longest that people are on death row there. Where here it's 20, 30 years. That some of them die naturally before they're executed.
I know this is horrible to say, but I truly hope that so you hear, and it's not always true, that people who mess with children are not treated well in prison. That's not always true. I hope in this instance, it's very, very true. And that Chad gets a taste of his own actions. I know that's a horrible thing to say, but when these kids went missing, you don't realize, if you don't live in East Idaho, how small it really is. We're really small communities, farming communities.
A rural farming community.
And a very tight-knit, it's like 95% LDS up there. They're very tight-knit. There's Brigham Young University's right there in Rexburg. But when you drive into Rexburg, it's small. It's grown a little bit since the university changed to Brigham, but it's still small. And then it ends abruptly, and then you're in the farmland. Just like Pocatello, it ends abruptly, and then you're in the farmland. And our communities are spread out about every 30 to 40 miles, 45 miles. And East Idaho, you might be in a different town, but you're still in East Idaho. And when those kids went missing, the last photographs were in Yellowstone, which is in our backyard. Yeah. And it's like they went missing, and everybody was just like, you said you remembered seeing them on the billboards in Main Street.
Yeah, in Pocatello, when you go over Gold Street overpass from Old Town to regular Pocatello, there was a huge billboard. It had their 2 pictures, missing children, Rexburg, Idaho. It just gives me chills. But one of the points somebody mentioned during Chad's trial, you could drive 5 miles in any direction and be in complete wilderness, be in complete non-inhabited land, Why would you bury the children in your
your
backyard?
own yard.
In your yard, where your children, he had a daughter and her husband living across the street. If you didn't have anything to do with it, how would you not know that?
Okay, Yellowstone.
Yeah.
You could have buried them in Yellowstone. They could put them in one of the, in the evening when there's hardly anybody around. They could throw them into one of the hot, what do you call those?
The geysers, the hot pots.
Yeah, because they disintegrate people within like 3 minutes. People fall into these things. I know that's morbid, but they do. They fall into them, and they are never ever found again.
Yeah.
So,
I think
thank God. Yeah, thank all the stars above that he did put him in his backyard.
Yeah. Well, and the best part was he had cement ordered to put a cement pad.
Yeah, he was gonna build a pad for a mobile home because he wanted to make sure that those kids were never be found. And thankfully that never happened.
Well, and one of Kay's, I believe it was her brother. It was either her brother or her brother-in-law, said, "Thank you, Kay," who was the grandmother of JJ, for being so, on top of this. The kids are missing. We need to find them, because if she hadn't done that originally, they ruled Tammy's death as just natural causes. And she died on Saturday. They buried her on Tuesday. Yeah, right. That's normal.
He wanted the funeral on Monday, and they said, "Oh, well, it's not possible.
Yeah,
we just can't get it all done."
Yeah, and had Kay not been so persistent, so determined with the police, they may not have ever known that Tammy was murdered.
Right. Which, I mean, this is all connected.
Yeah.
So she was like, where are my grandkids? Where's JJ? Where's Tylee? Where? And you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. The Rexburg police, they were working really, really, really hard on this case.
Yeah.
And they did an outstanding investigation. They did call in
the FBI.
Yeah, we have an FBI office right here in Pocatello, so they had the ability to help, and they really did with a lot of the electronic data. And it was just absolutely mind blowing. And actually, the law enforcement have they're able to get satellite images of houses, the land, and it's a satellite system. I believe it's only available to law enforcement. So they were able to see the change from one day to the next of Chad's property. Yeah. So they could see the grass, the burial areas.
How convenient that you're a grave digger and know how to move the grass and put it back. So there's not a huge, a different mound of dirt or something.
Yeah. So JJ was buried like that, and then Tylee was in
the pet cemetery.
Well, yeah, but wasn't she burned in the burn? What do you call that? Like
a burn barrel?
The ring fire pit.
Fire pit. Maybe.
I can't. So okay, oh God, this is so morbid. But I used to inspect crematoriums. There's a smell to burning a human body that is completely different than the smell of barbecuing a steak. I know this is morbid to talk about, but there's an odor to it that is different.
Well, do you remember? Even though he didn't do it, he said his daughter did it. They Googled the
wind direction.
Which way is the wind blowing? How strong is it? Because they wanted the wind to not carry the scent to the neighbors. Granted, they're in the country, so you don't have a neighbor right next to you. They're maybe a half a mile.
No. If you look at the house, I have it pinpointed on Google. The houses are fairly close. They're like these houses, but the acreage is a little bigger. Mm-hmm. They're close. They're in a little tiny subdivision, and then there's farmland all around it. It's just like mine.
It was Googled to know what the direction of the wind and how strong the wind would be.
Because you've got to make sure that wind isn't going across the houses, because people go, "What is that?" Because it doesn't smell like you're smoking chicken. It's
crematoriums. They're very good at filtering all of that.
They're very good. They have odorizers in their stacks, and there's things that they have to do because it's all part of their permit process. Something I used to do, weirdly enough. And so it's different. It's different. And so they had to make sure that that wind direction, the prevailing wind, was taking that odor away from the homes. And luckily enough, the way his property sits, he is on the most eastern side of that subdivision, and our wind is from the southeast, so it's pushing that smoke away from the houses. It's just mind-blowing, though. But he tried to cover his tracks. He did not have any of the data, like, you put on location on your phone, so when you're pulling up a map, you'll say, where are the restaurants near me? Well, if you're not doing really, I don't like a lot of that stuff because I feel like I just don't like it. But it's handy. It's handy to use this stuff. He turned off all of that. He didn't have the cloud
to do it.
Yeah, he searched how to do it. And then he didn't have anything backed up on any cloud whatsoever, his text messages or nothing. So when he erased them, they were pretty much erased. Where Lori had everything stored in the cloud, and a lot of it.
And Alex
didn't
have anything to.
And then they had burner phones.
Anything. Yeah.
Why do you need a burner phone if you're not doing something illegal?
Because he was having an affair.
Yeah, well, I mean, you would use
Well,
but they had many of them. That was the thing too. They had like 3 or 4 burner phones apiece. So come on, the whole thing.
Yeah, huge kudos to our prosecuting attorneys, to all of our law enforcement, to everyone who took these 5,000 puzzle pieces.
The jurors.
Yeah, took them and put them together so we could see. And that when you listened that last day when they were doing their closing statements, and literally our prosecutor said, this date, this happened. This date, this happened.
It was just like,
this date, this happened. And they had it lined up, and they couldn't prove Chad did any of it, technically, with surveillance or whatever. But how strange that the grave digger dug graves in his own backyard and, had this plan to put concrete foundation in for a trailer that had Googled how to turn off all the tracking systems on your phone, but didn't share it with anyone else. So was it just a matter of time before he offed Lori?
Well, and that was like, some people are saying, was it a matter of time before Lori off Chad or Chad off Lori? Because she had all the location services and all that. It was almost like he was setting her up.
Yeah. Well, he totally set up Alex. Alex nailed it. I'm the fall guy.
I really do think, though, Alex and Chad murdered. I don't think it was just Chad. I think Alex and Chad murdered.
Oh, I'm not even sure if Chad got his hands dirty, but if we all remember, I don't think Hitler killed many Jews. I don't think that what was his name? Charles Manson.
Well, I think he might have actually
at one point, but not the helter skelter stuff. But here's the thing: that's your psychopath. They're charming. They are well spoken. They may be shy or standoffish or whatever, but you don't go, ooh, it's the big bad boogeyman.
Yeah, it's not the big bad wolf knocking on your door.
No, it is.
And he was very, he's actually very unattractive. He has no
he's
chin.
Just neutral.
Yeah, he's just kind of like vanilla.
Yeah, he's not ugly, but he's not handsome. And I think I'm tainted a little for knowing all of the story with it. But yeah, he was not. Lori, I think he manipulated. I think he brainwashed all of the people that were following him. Lori and Alex. Alex's wife swore. Alex 100% believed every single thing that Chad said.
The power of words to be able to sway people into murdering children is mind-blowing. Think of Jim Jones. Yes.
They weren't random children. They were his family.
But Jim Jones in Guyana, and how many... it's just...
And he wasn't going to drink the Kool-Aid. Yeah. He was shot to death. That's what I'm saying. It's these charismatic leaders of cults. And it's like...
Yeah. So anyway, Google it if this all interests you. We were talking about it just from the aspect of, what the light and dark thing, and that's not part of traditional Mormonism. And this is all a lot of, It's like he gleaned little bits and pieces from
well, and
everything.
The popularity. Right now, zombies are a big thing. There's tons of movies about zombies. There's video games about zombies. They're bad. We need to kill them. Who's going to question that? If something's a zombie, we don't want it around.
Right.
So it takes that human touch out of it. This is a monster, a demon, whatever. And Jesus told
them. Especially in the Mormon church, too, the LDS faith, it's the prophet. If somebody says they're a prophet, then they get people believe them.
Yeah.
If they get following, and
well, Lori was goddess of the universe.
Yeah, Lori was
and
goddess.
They all were get out of jail free. They had their special blessing because they'd had so many lives. So anything they did was automatically forgiven. I mean, it was just like such detail and thought put into such a heinous.
And come on, Lori and Chad they're not dumb people. They had to have known this is all such bullshit. And they still did it.
Yeah.
They still did it.
Well,
so what is it up to mine?
Lori in January. They were in Hawaii. His wife's, the dirt wasn't even solid over his wife's grave when they went to Hawaii. She was already there. Lori was in Hawaii when Tammy died. And they arrested her there because they served her a warrant. Nate Eaton was the on top of it. Yeah. They served a warrant to Lori to produce the children to the Rexburg court system.
By such and such date.
Yeah, she had like 24 or 48 hours or something like that. Obviously, that was impossible to do. So they arrested her. It was then that Chad started building his wall of lesbian. And it's like, it doesn't matter if you are the one that takes the life, if you are the one who came up with why it should be taken, how it should be taken, when it should be taken, how to dispose of the body, what difference does it make? Because would Alex have just killed his niece and nephew for no reason? I don't think so. And as much as Lori gives me shivers too, because I'm a mother and a grandmother, and like I would go down and fight if someone was trying to hurt my kids and my grandkids. For her to think this was God's will, this was what they needed to do to save her children's souls, and she believed it, and it, like I said, it wasn't this pleasant. Here's a little poison pill, so go to sleep and don't wake up. It was not that at all.
Mm-hmm. So be careful who you get involved with, folks. Use your gut and listen to it. And if somebody's trying to talk you into doing something really bad, don't.
Yeah.
Distance.
If it's too good to be true, it's probably not true. And if somebody is telling you something that goes against your own moral compass, run.
Yeah. Well, that's all for this episode, but what a fascinating. And before we go, one of the things that really struck me was all the way through pretty much the whole entire trial, he had zero expression. Yeah. He may nod once in a while or shake his head a little bit, but there was zero expression. Go look at his booking photo. It just came out today. Yeah. Big smile. Big smile. Yeah.
The one thing I noticed was when they sentenced him, not when they did the death penalty. It might have been the other. You see him swallow.
That was the death penalty when he understood, because the judge, the way the language was read, was really I'm watching that. And actually, it's funny because my friend was here. He's working on my house, and we were kind of no, maybe he wasn't here, but anyway, I'm watching it. And I'm like, okay, what does that mean? Because it was so confusing. That
there were a ton of charges. It wasn't one thing. It was like 3 murders.
Yeah, but it wasn't like we were sentencing him to death for count 1 and death for count 2. It was the verbiage was really confusing. I'm like, it said that it would not be inconsistent with death or something. It was so strange. I'm like, what are they talking about?
Said they had to get clarification to make sure that what we really want is what this is saying.
Because so then the judge had to say, okay, I know this is not easy language, so let me just tell you in simpler terms what these sentences are. And that's when he said, we're sentencing him to death and 3 counts of death. And it was like, yes, I was just like, oh, I was so happy. And it's not, in one respect, I don't like the death penalty because if just one innocent person is put to death, that's just mind blowing to me that we could do that. But in this case, he is not an innocent man.
No.
And
there
honestly,
was not one person on the jury
not one
that had a doubt.
And the judge was phenomenal in this case. He was the same judge for the Lori Vallow case. Go back and read when Lori Vallow, or watch when Lori Vallow gets sentenced, the judge, and what he says to her. Okay. So, because I think the judge had to sentence her. It wasn't a jury that sentenced her on that. Oh, because it wasn't a death.
Right.
In Idaho, if it's a death sentence, the jury has to sentence, not the judge.
Yeah.
So,
the jury that finds them guilty has to choose whether it's life or death, when the death is an option. When it's just a life sentence, which she bartered down to, right? She agreed to waive her, or to require a speedy trial, this, that, and the other, if they took the death sentence off. I'm not 100% sure that there was enough evidence that they could, had the trials been stopped, they might have been able to, but I'm not sure they would have had enough evidence to complete, because every single person on the jury cannot have a single doubt. And they said they didn't, but they went through, there's like different questions. Did it meet this standard? Did it meet this standard? Did it meet this standard? Next one, the same thing. And they went through every single one of them. And they said, is there anyone in here that has any doubt? And everyone said, nope.
And these jurors are just like, they're just me and you, right? They're not, let's fry him, let's nuke him kind of people. They were very thoughtful, rational, like they even struggle, and they said, we have to live with this now for the rest of our lives, that we sentenced a human being to death.
Yeah.
These are not people who...
saying. There were 3 people that were murdered and one other that died, and now there will be a 5th one.
Right. These are not people who were just out for blood.
Yeah.
These are people who are now really struggling with the fact that they did this, but there was no choice.
Yeah.
There was no choice in the way the law was set up, that this man deserves what he got.
Yeah. I'm a super loving, caring, kind person. I would do anything in the world for anybody, but I am very, if somebody is a danger to society, if somebody has murdered and there is absolutely nothing, he didn't even speak for himself. There's nothing to show that he would ever change. He needs to be out of here. We don't need that in our world. And I don't know. I don't feel bad. I think that's what he deserves. I think that's probably what Lori deserves. Some people say, oh, that it would be better for them to live their life and have to suffer. But if you're a psychopath or a sociopath that has no empathy, are you suffering? Yes, you're inconvenienced. Yes, you don't get to go live on the beach in Hawaii, but you're alive and you're breathing, and your kids can, if they choose to call you, you're not out everything. And then the families, most of them said they would have been okay with either one. If they didn't agree on the death sentence, they would have been fine with life in prison, as long as there was not a possibility of parole. And the thing that kills me, and this will be a key to some of the other cases we may eventually talk about, is the state of Idaho. We're kind of wild, wild west. Mm-hmm. We're not, but we are. Mm-hmm. I mean, we just, I believe it was last summer, passed firing squad?
No, it was this year.
Was it this year?
It was after we tried to execute the guy who's been on death row forever and ever.
Yeah. Well, it's a short amount of time.
Like in February, we tried to execute him and they couldn't find a vein.
Yeah. And it's like...
So now we have the firing squad.
There was a TikToker, and he was talking about unbelievable facts. And one of them was that they had just started the firing squad as a means of capital punishment in the state of Idaho. And I was like,
I think Utah has it too.
Possibly. They're like, oh, that's a bunch of bunk. I pull it up. I'm like, no, we did. We have people that come here from other places. Chad was from Utah. Lori was from Texas and Arizona. And they came to Idaho. don't come to Idaho to kill people.
Mhm.
We kill people. I mean, it's like, I don't think it's a good thing or a bad thing. It's just a thing. That's what happens in this state. And it's, it's not decided easily or anything like that. But we have several murder cases coming up in our state of people. One was residing in Washington
Mhm.
and drove 7 miles
Across the border into Idaho.
He allegedly murdered 4 people.
Yeah, because his case hasn't come up yet.
And it's like, dude, 7 miles between life and death.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that just kind of reiterates to me that A, crime doesn't pay. B, there's karma out there. There's karma out there. You do really heinous stuff to people, and not everybody gets their payback, but some do.
Yeah.
And good riddance. Good riddance to people that have no regard for human life.
Yep. Well, this was a fun episode.
Now our blood pressure's
yeah,
up.
I know. So Google the case on YouTube, or you go on YouTube and watch East Idaho News if you haven't, and it's you will get drawn into this case on day one.
Yeah,
day
it's
one.
Not over.
No,
there's still the trial in Arizona.
Yeah. Well, there's an automatic appeal that goes on a death penalty case.
Yeah.
So it goes to Idaho Supreme Court.
Yeah.
So I just don't see them overturning this.
No.
But stranger things have happened. But
yeah, there's wonderful interviews. You can watch those on YouTube too. Of Lori 2 hours after her husband, that she told everyone he died of a heart attack and when really her brother shot him. Of how she tormented him and took his phone to make it back.
Oh God, that was.
And how she was talking to them about her husband of 14 years that just died in the home.
Yeah, she's laughing.
It's like
she's used her looks to get out of
the
everything.
flirtatious,
the flirtiness, and it didn't work. So yeah. All right.
Sometimes bad people get their comeuppance.
Yeah. All right. Catch you next time.
You've been listening to Speaking of Spirits, powered by Pocatello Paranormal Research in Pocatello, Idaho. Thank you for joining us today. We're glad you could be here. If you're enjoying the podcast, please do us a favor and go to whatever platform you are listening to the podcast on and give us a review. We prefer the 5-star reviews. This helps us know how we're doing, and it helps others to find the podcast. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you on our next podcast.